Welcome back. The week in politics. No, it is not Friday, but tomorrow is our big hurricane special, and it's not like the president will do anything outrageous in the next 24 hours or newsworthy. Today, the president pardoned extreme right-wing pundit Dinesh D'Souza, who was convicted of campaign law violations, even though D'Souza never asked for it. Trump also telling reporters he is considering pardoning Martha Stewart for lying to the FBI, and former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich, a Democrat who is still serving time for political corruption. Why? You tell me. All in a week where the president claims he didn't fire Comey over Russia, and one of the Republicans in that briefing about Spygate claims there was no FBI spy infiltrating the Trump campaign. And while his press secretary says the president has no time to react to Roseanne's racist tweet, he apparently finds time to demand an apology from ABC. And a few minutes for Kim Kardashian on her efforts for prison reform. Yeah, and we're not kidding. Joining us for more are Martin Hyde of the Sarasota Republican Party, Rita Ferrandino, former chair of the Sarasota Democratic Party, and Wendy March, the political correspondent for the Tampa Bay Times. Welcome to our Thursday version of the Week in Politics. And we're going to start with President Trump's tweet today about the Russia investigation. And I think we have it on the screen here. The president tweeting this morning, "Not that it matters, but I never fired James Comey because of Russia!" Exclamation point. The corrupt mainstream media loves to keep pushing this narrative, but they know it's not true. And we would plead guilty except for this.
Recommendation, but regardless of recommendation, I was going to fire Comey. I said, you know, this Russia thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story.
Martin, I'm going to start with you because this is almost like asking someone whether the sky is blue. The president said what he said just there. He tweeted what he tweeted this morning. How do you jive both things together?
Well, you can't. Clearly he's misspoken. I really don't think it makes a hell of a lot of difference why he fired him. He fired him and it was within his prerogative to do so.
And Rita, is that not the point? That if you ask your Republican friends around the Suncoast, where there are many, they just don't care what the president says about this because this is not the issue that they care about.
Well, I think what really people care about is we'd like to see stabilization occurring with our president, and we'd like to see a lot of this just stop. The noise is just incredible, and we're not getting to the big important issues that people really do care about.
Wendy, what is at play here? Because you're going to get this reaction from Sarasota to Tampa to St. Pete. Is there an underlying strategy here in terms of the president, trying to reach out to his base and get them fired up, and that's what it's all about?
Well, there's been a lot of this coming out recently, statements by Giuliani and others. Administration people are acknowledging that they are, in fact, conducting a public relations war, and it's aimed at what happens when Mueller completes his investigation, if there are any indictments, if Trump himself is in any way implicated. They're trying to attack the messengers that report on what happens, and they're trying to report on the investigators who try to find out what happened.
Rudy Giuliani said something maybe absolutely truthful this week, that what this is all about is playing to public opinion, because when it gets down to it, a public opinion is going to play a key role should the Democrats take over the Congress and proceed on trying to get the president out of office, Mark.
Well, I think that's true enough. Of course, impeachment in itself is not going to get him out of office. You need a 2/3 majority, and that's just not going to happen. It hasn't happened in, 100+ years, and it's not going to happen now. Bill Clinton was found guilty but wasn't impeached, and the reality is that we're talking about and concerning ourselves with things which are just background noise, not concerned with what's happening in Korea, the stock market, the unemployment, or any of the things that are working.
Well, we might be talking about that more if the president was not putting out tweets like today and saying things that show obviously contradiction of the President of the United States.
And you had a beautiful show on just this week where you're looking at the stock market, and I believe what was said right here on this show with the analysts that you had, and is that it's not working, that we're seeing all-time volatility, and that two of the biggest stocks in the country are at 20-point lows with General Electric and Procter & Gamble.
All right, we have to take a quick break, and we're just getting warmed up, and we'll be talking about why the president putting tariffs on our closest allies right after we check the First Alert weather, so stay with us. Welcome back. We are talking about the week in politics, and joining us for more are Martin Hyde of the Sarasota Republican Party, Rita Ferrandino, the former chair of the Sarasota Democratic Party, and Wendy March, the political correspondent for the Tampa Bay Times. In our latest installment of Spygate, the president tweeting today, "The corrupt mainstream media is working overtime, not to mention the infiltration of people, spies, informants into my campaign. Surveillance much?" Mr. President, you have to listen to one of your congressmen, a Republican, Trey Gowdy, the man who investigated Benghazi and everything involving Hillary Clinton for the last 8 years. This is what he said today.
I am even more convinced that the FBI did exactly what my fellow citizens would want them to do when they got the information they got, and that it has nothing to do with Donald Trump.
Martin, Trey Gowdy is on the Homeland Security Committee. He heard that briefing that Republicans and Democrats got last week. He is saying that the president is wrong when claiming the FBI was spying and infiltrating his campaign.
Based on what they've told him, I mean, the reality is we've spent, what, 15, 16 months looking into collusion, can't find any, and yet this is supposed to be over.
I'm sorry. What do you mean can't find any? Have you been talking to Robert Mueller?
No, but I mean, they haven't proven any collusion. There isn't any evidence.
Do prosecutors usually reveal what they have before they indict anyone?
I don't know what this guy's about. I know that he spent 15 months and I haven't heard anything yet. I don't know how long it takes to investigate something that happened over a few months. 15 months later, we've got nowhere.
And how long did it take to investigate Watergate?
2 years.
Oh, 2 years. And what we're looking at now is Trey Garrity saying that he knows for a fact something after just a matter of a few days. Based on what? Based on what the FBI told him? I don't know.
Rita, public opinion polls do show that Republicans increasingly are against the Mueller investigation, and that there is a general perception that people are getting, even Democrats, are getting tired of it. So what are your concerns about that?
I'm saddened by that, because we know that the White House has launched a very strong PR campaign to discredit the Mueller investigation. As you can hear the talking points from Mr. Hyde, I mean, it's nonstop propaganda against this, and it's taking hold. And what is wrong with having a full investigation of something so critical to our national security and our democracy? I want us to take as long as it takes, and I'm discouraged that the White House has taken this on as this propaganda machine.
Wendy, you know, I watch Bill Maher usually on Friday nights, and he says if the Democrats had cojones, they would be campaigning on that. We do not hear this in terms of the midterm elections. Democratic candidates out there demanding that we get to the bottom of this and making that a major issue in the midterm elections.
Well, there is a lot of feeling among Democrats that campaigning just on an anti-Trump platform is not going to work, is not a winning strategy, and they're probably right. But I think you are going to see Democrats standing up and saying that the investigation has to be completed, saying something like what Rita just said, that it's important to determine what hostile foreign powers are trying to interfere in American elections.
And Rita, what are the Democrats campaigning on? And I say this, and I ask this question often, because there was an interesting interview with John Kasich, the Republican governor of Ohio, today, where he basically said, in terms of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, there's a pox on both your houses. Let's take a look.
I think the Republican Party is gone dormant. Now, I don't know where the Democrats are. I can't figure out what they're for. But what I can say to you is this rise of people who are now disruptors is heartening to me. It gives me hope for the future of the Congress.
The governor is talking about there is that there is an effort in Congress, both Republicans and Democrats, to do a discharge petition to get DACA voted on, because that's what the vast majority of Americans want. But he is saying that the Republican Party is now solely the the party of Trump, and not Republicans who, for decades, have fought the good fight in terms of taxes and so forth. And the Democrats, he's unsure of what they are running on in this midterm election.
So you've seen Democrats winning across the country in these special elections. And what you're seeing as the through line is that Democrats are reaching out to real people who want to speak on their own local issues. And so I think that the thread of what's really working is Democrats speaking to their own constituencies about what they can do to help them. And I think that the Democratic Party is realizing that we need to localize a lot of our elections, and we need representatives that are going to go to D.C. or to their state capitals to represent the needs of the people. And that's why I'm really excited about the 2018 elections.
But I don't hear an economic message that is designed to win back working class voters.
You certainly do. If you listen to the governor's race and you look at what each of our Democratic governors candidates have, very strong economic policy, and they're each crafting their own. Phil Levine has a very strong message on consumer. He believes in public-private partnerships to grow our economy. He has many ideas and platforms around that. Same with the other candidates.
Martin, John Kasich is one of those fellows that are being talked about. If anybody is going to challenge Donald Trump in the Republican primary, it may well be him. And he is drawing a distinction between Trump supporters and Republicans.
I agree. I mean, this, like Trump-like thing has entered the lexicon over the last couple of years. I was born in Britain. I grew up watching the movement from socialism to the Conservative Party in the 70s, the devastation of working under the socialists in the 70s, three-day weeks, power strikes. And I followed Margaret Thatcher. Many Americans of the same era followed Ronald Reagan. I don't think Donald Trump comes into the same category, but I'm not sure Kasich is a guy either.
I got to ask you about the flurry of pardons today. Dinesh D'Souza, who is an extreme right-wing Republican pundit who has said a lot of, frankly, offensive things, convicted of election violations. Martha Stewart, who voted for Hillary Clinton and said that the last thing she wanted to see was Donald Trump becoming president. And the former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich, who was accused of trying to sell Barack Obama's Senate seat when he was elected president. Why would this president pardon any of these guys?
Because he's always doing something on a Thursday or a Friday that's going to hit the weekend news cycle to keep himself in front and center. And I think it's disgraceful that he's using our legal system and his ability to pardon on such ridiculous things.
Wendy, what some people are speculating, and I'm wondering what your take is, that there is a message here to, General Flynn, to Michael Cohen, and to others who may be caught up in the federal investigations that, you get my back, I will have your back eventually.
Oh, sure. I mean, what he's saying to them is, I have this power, remember this, it can happen. And that was in the report that talked about this at the top of the show. It pointed out that previous presidents have not used pardon power nearly as often or as quickly as Trump's doing. So it's pretty clearly a message. I think, weren't Blagojevich and Martha Stewart both on The Apprentice with Trump?
Yeah, that seems to be a coincidence.
And of course, Dinesh D'Souza, as a conservative commentator, he's basically saying, if you're tight with me, I'll be tight with you. And he's going to take care of people who might get indicted and might be forced to turn on him.
Actually, pardon more people presidentially than any other president in living history.
Non-violent drug offenders.
Thank you. This is not.
I
this is not play for pay favors.
I do want to ask you one more question, Martin, and that is the announcement today that the president is going to allow the tariffs protection to expire against our trade enemies, Canada and the European governments and Mexico. Your take as a free trader on that?
I don't know about enemies. I think America first.
It's not what friends do.
Well, it may not be what friends do, but we're in a competitive world, and the first place that we have to look is inward. We have to look at our own country. We have to look at our own economy. We're not responsible for Canada. We're not responsible for Mexico. We're not responsible for Europe. So far as I'm concerned, he's doing the right thing.
All right, we have to take a quick break, and we'll be back for final thoughts in a moment. Stay with us. And our guest joining us right now for final thoughts, and I want to talk about the U.S. Senate race between Rick Scott and Bill Nelson for a moment, because for weeks now, the governor has been up with his own ads and independent ads, basically baking in you know, positive ads about himself and really negative ads about Bill Nelson. Finally, Bill Nelson is up with his own TV ads. It turns out he's a former astronaut. Rita, I mean, are you glad to see you know?
So what's interesting to me is after $10 million of ads, Rick Scott didn't move his poll numbers at all. So the reason that Bill Nelson did not, he held his powder and his money because we know Rick Scott's able to self-fund and has very deep pockets. The Nelson campaign was closely watching the results, what was happening with those ads, and they weren't making a difference. And so the Nelson campaign came in with a very positive ad of introducing Bill Nelson to many people as to what he is, which, you know, is what's airing.
Wendy, but there has been increasing angst amongst Democrats in our area about the Nelson campaign and just the vast sums of money that Rick Scott has been dumping into advertising.
Not just in our area. National Democrats have been worried about it too. There's been a lot of talk about when is Nelson going to get off the couch. The one theory is what Reed just said, that what Nelson was doing, knowing that Scott will be able to heavily outspend him, he wants to save his ammunition for when he's really going to need it. And he starts off, the other problem that Nelson's generally thought to have is he's never been a headline grabber comparable to, say, Marco Rubio, and the result is he doesn't have that much of a reputation one way or the other. So he starts off with an ad reminding people who he is. He's that guy that went up in space, the senator that went up in space.
And he's the one who fought for Medicare and Social Security, and he was, you know, it's one of his crowning achievements is saving those two programs. He worked hard on those.
So, you know, Rita says that Rick Scott has dumped a lot of money over the last few weeks, but his poll numbers have not really reflected that ad buy. Martin, what's going on there?
I don't know about polls. Trump was going to lose. 46 years in politics is a long time. I'm not surprised. It's tough for him to get off the sofa.
How many years did Rick Scott spend in business? So why is it wrong that...
Well, he wasn't doing that on the public dime. The reality is that he has had 40-odd years. His ads are very difficult to follow because he's only got 2 alleged achievements, which as far as I'm concerned were congressional ones.
We'll have to leave it there. But before we go, we want to share with you what some of you had to say about last night's show on post-college graduation life for millennials. According to the latest census, 31% of all 18 to 34-year-olds still live with their folks. That's compared to 26 in 1975. Is this because of low-paying entry-level jobs, the high cost of living, or both? We went to Facebook for your thoughts. And Timothy says poor choice of degrees mixed with entitlement syndrome leads to this. Rick adds, and parents that need to throw them out so they can learn about what life's about. Dana says, not all of us are enabled and have no life skills. I am living with my parents to pay off student loans because I went to nursing school. I am currently working as an RN and currently am back in school to get my MSN to become a nurse practitioner. And I am paying half of the mortgage among other large bills. So please don't stereotype us all. And Matthew says, sorry, older generations, but you're mistaken. Sure, there are some lazy young adults these days. Your generation had a few of them too. What is different is that the dollar you worked so hard for back then doesn't get half of what it did in your day. Well, if you'd like to join the conversation on tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/mysuncoast.com.abc7. And FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. We want to thank our guests for being here tonight. Martin Hyde of the Sarasota Republican Party, Rita Ferrandino, the former chair of the Sarasota Democratic Party, and Wendy March, the political correspondent for the Tampa Bay Times.